in remote procedure call, what we are seeing right now is, suppose we have multiple nodes, these processes are running there. So whenever they have to call a procedure, suppose A want to call a procedure which is on B, then definitely it can call with certain information that it will have about this particular procedure to execute. Suppose it may need its name and path, it may need its other information related to what are the argument it needs, what are these particular things, right? So here in distributed system, since we want to implement transparency, let me call it distribution transparency, which means we want these procedures to act like they don't know whether they are executing the local procedure or it is a remote procedure. So for that purpose, this remote procedure call will be very helpful. So okay, now if you want to implement such kind of thing, remote procedure calls, what are the things that you have to keep in mind? Suppose what should be the way, what should be the programming method for this particular RPC. Okay, so basically here one thing that you have to keep in mind is that we used to program with interfaces. Okay, interfaces will be something which will have the attributes, okay, the way to access the attributes and the definition of the, okay, definition, I don't know whether you will understand what, suppose the names defined of the methods to execute on these attributes. So given the interfaces, these interfaces can be defined accordingly. The way you want to deal with the attributes, it can be defined and it can be changed without changing anything, the function name or different things, the function calls from different places, these need not change. So this programming with interfaces helps us to implement this RPC. Also, we have to understand a few things like how these calls takes place, what are the things related to these calls. So we have to understand the call semantics. Okay, so also we have to understand how transparency is related to RPC. Okay. So now, if you think about programming with interfaces, I believe you can understand. So, how many of you have heard about Java or done some programming in Java?
Yes, sir.
Most of you. If not, then you should have done. So there you may have heard or used interfaces. So what you need to do is in distributed system we used to define, let me write, in distributed system we used to define these interfaces for each module. Okay. Now the thing is, the interface for one module where it specifies the procedures, and the variables or attributes. Okay, so these are only those variables which can be accessed from other modules. So now, because of these interfaces provided for each module, what happens? Those variables or those attributes which you want to share, they have been included in the interface. However, those informations which we want to hide from others, they are not given in the interface. So those informations are hidden from the outer modules. So now these modules, we have to think whether they are running as a same within the same process or as a separate processes. So both of the things are possible actually. These can be, these means the modules, may run on the same process or separate process. Okay. So there can be certain kind of services being provided by these processes. Suppose if at all it is a kind of server. So what this server does, a file server if at all it is, so this file server will provide some services like reading or writing, right? So suppose it is a file server. What this file server has? It has several files. Now these files can be accessed by other modules, so it will provide a interface. Okay, let me call it as a service interface with definitely certain variables and methods for reading the file or writing the file. Okay, so this is how we will have to define interfaces according to the need for different modules. Suppose, okay, if at all we are trying to discuss some more benefits related to these interfaces, then you can understand that in usually you will see what we want is we want to hide some of the informations in many cases. So wherever we want to hide the information related to the details, and we want to still share the information of the functions that we have implemented, the methods using which the services of this module can be accessed, then we need to create such kind of interfaces which can offer these methods for our outer world or outer external modules to access these services. Other than that, it is true that we need to know the programming language and whatever the platforms on which these are being implemented. But it is not always the case. However, while implementation we keep these things in mind, but as we are discussing about distributed system, we know that it may be heterogeneous. So in this heterogeneous environment, what happens? These platforms may be different, and sometimes the modules that have been implemented, they may be written in different language. Still, if you are dealing with interfaces only, if this module has provided its own interface along with a set of methods which can be called from the outer module, and this module also has notified its own function methods which are available to be called from the outer modules, external modules, then it becomes totally easy to implement this heterogeneous environment. Okay. So this is the way you have implemented interfaces for all the modules. So the one thing that we were going through in beginning, we called it openness. We wanted to standardize all the things. That is something. So here, if you have standardized the way that in this way you will have an interface for these modules, and because of that we all are having a standardized kind of thing. So these modules need not worry about heterogeneity. It may be written in a different language, maybe on a different platform, it may be separately on a different platform written in a different language, but still they can communicate, they can ask for the services from each other using the methods in the interfaces. Now, because of this also, this whatever the whole module of your distributed system has been developed, so it will become easy for this distributed system to grow or evolve in the future. So as long as these all the modules are totally free from each other, you can understand they have just given their interface through which they can others can communicate. So it becomes very easy for distributed systems to evolve in future. So these, including many others, are the benefit of these things. Now if I have to tell you about something more, let me tell you about there is a process, there is another process. This is one module, another module. It has their own attributes, some values, some variables suppose. So now the thing is, this module cannot directly see or directly access this particular variable. So let me name them, it is A and B. So this A cannot access these variables of B directly. However, if at all it uses some kind of interface or certain kind of procedure, actually these all the things that we are studying, whether it is communication or remote procedure calls, or all the other things related to failure recovery and those kind of things. It is all together to make a middleware. Okay, you want to make a middleware, and for this purpose only you are studying these all the things. So you should have the knowledge of these all the things, so that it would be easy to understand or implement such kind of middlewares. So here we are talking about a remote procedure call. So this middleware will be something which will allow you to communicate from A to B. For that purpose, it may have implemented a remote procedure call, or maybe other things also. Maybe after this we will see a remote method invocation also. A little different, but more or less similar. So here what I was telling you, you cannot, this module A cannot directly access this thing. However, if it has this interface kind of thing, suppose you have heard about Corba. So if you have a Corba ideal interface, it will allow you to access the variables. How? It will implement its own methods for setting or resetting, means own method for accessing or updating the variables. Okay, so it will using those methods you can access the data. Now let me tell you about how parameters can be passed. Okay, parameter passing. Suppose you have a module here A and B. You want to call a method of this A wants to call a method of B, then it's okay, the method was M1, it can call the method. However, this method has to perform some operation, and for that particular operation you need certain parameters. Earlier when you were having local calls, in that case, for whenever you send the arguments, it can be call by value or call by reference. Call by reference. So whether it be a call by value or call by reference, it was the case of local. Now in case of this distributed system, basically this call by reference kind of thing is not possible, that you are sending and you are having a variable here which will be automatically updated. In place of that, you will have certain ways to send the input and also get the output. So whenever you send a request, in this request you send definitely the M1, the name of the message, along name of the method. Along with that, you also send the arguments needed to execute. And this method, definitely you understand, when an interface is designed, it has the methods can also return something. So from here you may get some reply from B. So when the reply will come from B, in that particular B, that particular reply, this output whatever has generated, it can be saved. Okay, so when the reply is received here, from that reply, this particular output, whatever result, can be unmarshalled and used, or the variables can be set. So this is the way how your parameters can be passed. Now other thing, if I have to tell you, is about the address. So if you in a procedure, if you are using certain local address, if you are using certain address kind of thing, then for a local method it is okay. Okay, if you are calling a local module, it is okay, but for not a it is not valid for a remote procedure. So when you want to send some certain parameters, suppose in a parameter you are saying some address, okay, in parameter you are sending some address, so such kind of thing is not beneficial in case of use of this remote procedure call. So these are the few things related to remote procedure calls. However, there are some more things that you need to know. Suppose if I have to tell you something about okay, there was interface definition language. I was telling you about Java. So in Java, you define the interfaces, you already know. It may be used for a local or a remote invocation, no problem. Also for C++ and other languages also, such kind of things are being implemented that are also useful. If next thing that I can tell you, okay, till now I will tell you about more things, maybe about call semantics. Now tell me if you have to ask something. Here in call semantic, what you have to understand is that earlier also in request reply protocol we have seen that it can be a request message. Okay, whenever these kind of things happen where if you want to provide the guarantee of delivery, then you can have a suppose something fails, okay, then what you will do, you can allow to retry with a new request message. So in that case, the retransmission of this request message can go until a reply is received, okay, or maybe we can feel like it has the server has crashed. So let me write it. One is retry request message. In this case, what is happening? You will use to retransmit the request message retransmit the request message until you get a reply, until you get a reply, or if you have some kind of timeout, then until the timeout. Another thing that I can tell you about this place, actually here we are talking about different ways of providing guarantee, right? So these are different ways to provide delivery guarantee. Right? So this was retry request. One way can be duplicate filtering. Okay. So in this case, what will happen? It is saying that whenever duplicate requests are coming, so you will have to filter them out. So here in this case, suppose retransmissions are allowed. Retransmission is allowed. Then multiple requests may come. In that case, you will have to filter out duplicate requests. Okay, this is done at the server side, right? Now, this is not only the request messages which may have some problem. The reply message, maybe it has been sent once, but it may have not been received. So in that case also, we can have to retransmit. Retransmit results. है ना? So here you have to define whether you have to keep the history of your result. History. Okay, Control J. Of the results. Okay, so if you will have this history of this result, so whenever needed, suppose in certain cases you may need to retransmit the results. Okay, certain request comes again that that we haven't received the result. In that case, if you will not save this history of the results, in that case you will have to re-execute the procedure. However, if you will save the history of the results, in that case you can retransmit the result itself. So these are the few things that you have to keep in mind. Okay, now these were the procedures for providing delivery guarantee. Means certain fault happens in between communication, then what can be done, right? So suppose these are the procedures, let me call it as fault tolerance measure. Okay, this can be either let me name them. This is request reply message, RRM. Okay, this is duplicate filtering, this is DF. This is retransmit results, so it is R only. So these are three different methods for fault tolerance. Here let us talk about it. Whether these are available or not, we will discuss. So it is RRM, this was DF, and also this thing RR. So now suppose in a system you are sending this thing. Okay, RRM, this is not available, and duplicate filtering is not applicable, as well as this history is also not maintained. This is also not applicable. So this is the case of call semantic. Okay, call semantic you can name it as maybe. Okay, this is a maybe semantic. Okay, in this with this maybe semantic, the remote procedural calls that we will have, it may be executed maybe once or maybe not at all, no problem. Okay, this is the case of your maybe semantic. There will be the next one. Let me name two more semantics. One where you will have this RRM. You will have this RRM, which means request reply message will be there. At the same time, this duplicate filtering, you don't have this duplicate filtering. However, for this repeated request, this thing, retransmission of results, here you are not maintaining a history. You will have to re-execute. Okay, you will have to re-execute the procedure. If this is the case, what do you call it? You call it at least once. You call it at least once semantic. Just wait a minute. One call semantic is maybe call semantic, one is at least once call semantic, and one call semantic is at most one call semantic. You can let me write it. It is at most once. Okay. For this, what will happen? You will have this RRM. You will have this RRM. You will also have this duplicate filtering and this retransmit reply also. Okay. So in this case, what is happening? You are transmitting the reply. You are maintaining a history and retransmitting it. Whenever the requests are coming, if the duplicate requests are there, you are filtering it. So in this case, what is happening? You will have to execute the procedure at most once. Okay. If you have executed it 0 times, then it is another case. In that case, you will have to execute once and then produce the reply and then send it back. But no matter how many requests are coming, you will have to execute it only once and you will store the result. Okay. So these are the 3 call semantics, where in the first case you can understand the operation, the procedure may execute or may not execute. Okay. However, in second case, you can say the request can come twice or multiple times. So when requests are coming, you are not filtering it also. In that case, for each request, it may happen that you are executing the same procedure again and again. Okay. So at least once this procedure will be executed. However, until you get a reply, you will keep on requesting. So in that case, this procedure will be executed again and the reply will be sent. So this is at least once call semantic. However, one is at most once call semantic. Here in this case, you maintain a history of your result. You also filter the duplicate request. So multiple request is possible, no problem. Once you have once you are able to understand that multiple requests are coming. It is duplicate request, so you can notify that one request we have received, no problem, the procedure is running. The reply is here, you can send the reply. Okay, no matter how many times the request comes, you can send the reply, doesn't matter, you need not to execute it again. So that is these are the three call semantics for this remote procedure call. Okay, I believe this is okay for now.